Mayali disappeared into the grasslands with the cubs. Behind her, the pride had become a slaughterhouse for rogue lions. The former king was driven out. The remaining cubs were brutally killed, yet the 8 cubs she had taken still played around, unaware of the danger closing in. They had no idea a deadly threat was approaching. The 2 young male lions ignored all the other lionesses, charging ahead, tracking Mayali's scent. As their noses brushed over her paw prints, a growl rose in their throats, thick with lust and murder. On one side, the mother lion was clawing through thorns, leaving bloody prints across the rocks. On the other, hunters chased by moonlight, their ambition to conquer pressed into every blade of grass. A 1,000-mile chase. A mother's desperate flight for survival. 2 fates, crossing paths in the moonlight. A brutal showdown between survival and motherhood had quietly begun. For a whole day and night, the pride hadn't had a single drop of water. The cubs crowded around the muddy waterhole, lapping up dirty water with dry tongue. Their throats rasped with dryness. Suddenly, a lion's roar thundered from deep in the plains. Like a boulder shattering stagnant water, the rogue brothers had tracked them all night. The cubs instantly froze in fear. They darted to Mayali's side. From afar, 2 black figures came thundering across the morning mist. The pride scattered like startled birds. But Mayali suddenly froze in her tracks. She looked back, spotting the limping figure of Lu Shi among the grass. Then she turned and ran straight toward the males. Her golden silhouette sliced through the morning light, a curve of resolve. Just as the claws were about to rip her throat, she rose on tiptoe and gently brushed the lead male's mane with her nose. Warm breath skimmed across his scarred snout. The growl in his throat suddenly caught. After all, as estrus bait, Mayali was just while he reeled from the sudden seduction. Mayali swished her tail through the grass, signaling Marsha in the distance to take the cubs and go. As the 8 little bodies vanished into the thicket, she even rested her head tenderly on the male's shoulder. But her eyes never strayed from the distant horizon. After all, who likes a guy with no house and no dowry to offer? As night fell, the lion snored loudly in exhaustion. She held her breath, rising like a leaf in the cold northern wind. Every step placed on the softest part of the grass. When the morning dew chilled her nose, she finally left the lion's scent range. She glanced back at the 2 sleeping shadows, a cold smirk on her lips. No car, no house, no dowry, and you dream on. Mayali followed the scent trail left by the cubs, crushing the last frost before dawn. When she saw those 8 curled-up furballs deep in the plains, a muffled sob burst from her throat. The pride rushed to her side, touching their noses to the wound on her neck, the scar left by the lion's fangs the night before, as if to confirm this wasn't just another nightmare. A roar of rage echoed in the distance. The rogue lions had finally realized the whole escape was a ruse. Mayali looked toward the pale light in the east, her mane lifted by the breeze. She knew this breath of peace, bought with lies, would be brief. The brothers would never stop hunting them. So her figure stepped into the morning once more, leaving behind the roars and pursuit like echoes fading past the horizon. As the last cooking smoke sank into the earth, Mayali's eyes reflected a massive herd of buffalo. The cubs lay flat with growling bellies. They whimpered and sat down. She licked her cracked nose and locked eyes on a staggering calf at the edge of the herd. The wind lifted her tawny mane. He wanted to raise a black flag of death. The moment the herd turned around, he lunged like an arrow from a bowstring, sinking his claws into the calf's waist and locking onto its trembling throat. But the adult buffalo's charge shook the very ground. The lead bull's sharp horns sliced through the dusk and came charging in full force. Letting go of his prey, he turned just in time to see a wall of horns storming toward him. In the chaos, only a single agonized scream was heard. As the stampede finally thundered past the horizon, he lay like a tree snapped by a violent wind, tossed across the grassland trampled flat by the buffalo. The skin on his sides was shredded like torn bark. 2 gaping wounds exposed his ribs as dark red blood spilled between them. It flowed through the dry grass like a winding stream. his nose pressed to the ground. Each breath tugged painfully at his wounds. Blood-tinged foam gurgled in his throat. It was the last flicker of life jolted loose by the buffalo's horn. He tried to follow the fleeing pride, but collapsed after only a few steps. He tried to lick his wounds, but his tongue trembled violently upon contact, as if touching a red-hot branding iron. His amber eyes reflected a blurred image of his own bloodied face. The pain spread like needles, from his wounds to the roots of every single hair. Suddenly a cub burst into view. His most stubborn son, rubbing his forehead frantically against his. Whimpering broke from his throat. He tried to lick his son's forehead, but couldn't even lift his head. As he drifted to the edge of unconsciousness from the pain, the pride lingered nearby, staring at his fading body. Those who once shared the hunt with him eventually turned and walked away, crushing dew beneath their paws. His daughter and son rubbed against his blood-stained mane, but survival instincts pulled them toward the retreating pride. When Mayali finally woke up, his cracked lips still called out the cubs' names. His gaze swept across the empty den. The pride was long gone. The wind had blown away every grain of sand. His final roar broke apart in his throat like shattered breath. The instinct to raise young had crumbled under pain, leaving only empty wind through his matted mane, as if mocking this abandoned mother's trap. As the lion's paw prints marked the dead grass, Mayali licked scraps of meat from the brush. Each step with his wounded forepaw brought searing pain, but he had no choice but to limp after the migrating pride. The sour stink of leftover meat churned in his gut, and only the will to survive kept him moving. And sure enough, heaven favors the strong. Maksha managed to bring down a wildebeest just ahead. The fresh kill gave the pride a chance to rest, and gave Mayali time to catch up. By the time he dragged himself there, the wildebeest was stripped to its skeleton. Even the marrow had been licked clean by the cubs. But still, he devoured the scraps like treasure. Swallowing bone chips and blood foam, he tasted the sweetness of survival, thanks to Magsha's hunt. The pride could rest and recover after a full meal. From that day on, his pride never left him behind. Magsha led the hunts, always saving the freshest organs for his recovery. For 30 whole days and nights, they stayed by the bushes, watching his wounds heal into fresh pink flesh. When the first morning star lit up his eyes again, he finally stood tall and let out a long-forgotten roar at the moon. Those wildebeest bones he once clung to like lifelines had become the strength beneath his reborn hide. Every moonlit night after that, Mayali would lead his pride, crushing starlight beneath their paws. Until that night, when two dark shadows finally emerged under the moonlight. The lion's roar sent a tremor through the cub's fur. As the roars drew closer, Mayali snapped to full alert. Just as the male lion lunged toward the cubs, Mayali shot out like an arrow from a bow. He was no longer the lion who once relied on lies to survive. His torn wounds now burst with strength as he charged. Every step bloomed and the whoosh of air was more terrifying than any roar. The two male lions tucked their tails and fled into Mayali turned to check on the cubs, their fur glowing cold and metallic in the moonlight. A growl rumbled in his throat, one fit for a lion king. From that day on, no trace of the rogue lions was ever seen again on the plains. One morning, the voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the up. The voice you selected does not support this. The voice you selected does not support this language. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper. The voice you selected does not support this. The voice you selected does not. The voice you selected does not support this language. Please click the upper right corner to switch to another voice.